Hey, Neil and Christina's classes. We're hoping that you guys will be able to program the soundboard, which is one of the coolest projects that we were able to do in AP Computer Science Principles this year. But in order to understand this project better, there are a couple of missing pieces that we thought we could fast forward through by doing a project specially designed to teach you all of that material. So this video is a brand new project that I've never done before. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a series of buttons that's all going to appear as a group that announce out to the user things like, good job, great work, you're doing awesome, and then maybe some bad comments too. So let's take a look at how we could build this. And then after we complete this project, you'll be able to build your soundboard project too. So I'm going to start a brand new REPL, and I'm going to call mine, I don't know, let's see, feedback robot. So for our feedback robot, one of the things that I was hoping to teach you is how do we group together a bunch of information so that it all appears inside of a single box. Now, when you were doing your About Me, you may have had like the desire to do this as well, to group your information. I'm actually going to see if I can open up one of our other projects, Tech Blog. Let me see. Here we go. And in this project, you'll see kind of without some of the flashiness of the soundboard, what I was trying to accomplish, which is grouping together titles, images, and content all within the same box. Okay, so to show you how to do this, it's actually super easy. We're going to be making a little control panel, kind of like this, for our project right here, the feedback robot. So I'm going to put a new element type called a div on my page. Now a div is unlike an H1 or a paragraph or any of that stuff. It doesn't come with any built-in style of its own. It's only used for grouping things and then styling as a whole group. So let me show you how this works. I'm going to put an H1 header inside of this, which will say something like feedback robot. I'll put a paragraph, and it will say something along the lines of like, press any of the buttons below to give feedback. Now I'm also going to put a bunch of buttons, and I'll copy and paste my opening and closing tags so that I can save a little bit of time. And then, I don't know, I'll put this one as good job, great job. I'll make this one neutral. You did fine. And then I'll make this one mean. I don't know. You are awful. So this button, I think, is actually a new tag type for you guys as well. Let's take a look at how this looks. So I'm going to click this button to load it up. And we've got our feedback robot all set up. Now the first thing that you'll notice is it doesn't look like the div did anything. And so the way that we can get the div to do stuff, and you can see the benefit of using these div tags, is if we go to the style and we select using the div selector. This works the same as any other element, where say we want to style the H1, we might do something like color blue for the H1. For the div here, what we'll do is we'll do a background, and we'll give the background, I don't know, like a light gray. All right, let's see. Oh, now we got it. Okay, great. So you can see that this whole div actually has that background. And what we can do now is we can do crazy things. Like we can specify the width of the div to be, I don't know, maybe 200 pixels. And if I refresh it, oh, that's too tiny. The width of the div to be, I don't know, 600 pixels. Let's see about that. So sometimes it takes me a couple of refreshes, or Command R's, and now we can see we've got our user face looking pretty good here. User interface looking pretty good here. We can actually apply, so sorry, I'm going super fast here, but one of the things that we can do is you can see actually that all of this is grouped together in this gray box. And that's because we applied a light gray background to our div. All right, let's see. let me try to center all of this stuff. So I'm going to take the div and I'm just going to do a text align center on that. And let's see if that centers the stuff. Okay, and if I refresh it, it centers it, so that's looking better. Maybe I could size this actually a little bit better too. So let me do, I don't know, 500 for the size of the div. Okay, I'm liking that. Now I do notice that the bottom and the top are pressed right against the edge, and it doesn't look too good for me. So to add space inside of the div, we're going to use a new property called padding. So I'm going to add 10 pixels of padding, which should increase the space between the border and the stuff inside by 10 pixels. All right, that looks decent. I'm also going to throw some sort of a border radius on this of, I don't know, maybe 20 pixels so we can make it curved. That looks better to me. And I'd like to center the whole div. So to center the whole div, let me just try this out. We called space inside of the div padding. Space outside of an element is called the margin. So if I do margin auto, it will auto-calibrate the space outside so that it's equidistant from both sides. Finally, I'm going to select the whole page here, and I'm going to add some style to that. So I'll select the body of the page, and then I'm going to add, I don't know, a background. And if you watched one of the challenge videos, I think, from the last one, you'll see me do something called a linear gradient, which I think I have to do 180 degrees, red, blue. I hope I'm setting this up right. Let's see how this looks. Ugh, gross. But I think I want 90 degrees. All right, much better. Cool. And if I want to increase the distance on the top between the web page and the app interface, I can specify after the margin line a special margin called margin top, which will be just the distance on the top. And I'll make that equal to, I don't know, 100 pixels. And now it's a little further down. So this is looking decent for me, and we can see how this will translate well into our soundboard project. All right, now the next thing I wanted to teach you guys is, it seems like some of these buttons are good job and great job, and one of these buttons is kind of mean. So how do we give these things special styles? Maybe I want the nice buttons to be green and the mean button to be red. Now up till this point, you didn't know how do you style some of the buttons separate. So let me show you. I'm going to take the mean button and I'll do that one first. So here's where we run into a problem. If I try to select just the mean button, it only has the descriptor to be a button out of all of the buttons here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a special identifier called an ID, and I'm going to call this mean. And what I'm going to say here is, when we go to the styling, select just, select just the mean button and give it a style. So to do that, to find the thing with an ID, and notice there's no spaces here. So a lot of students will do this. You can't put spaces. To select the thing with an ID of mean, we use a hashtag and we say ID mean. And then let's give this a background of red. And if I refresh it a couple of times, now the mean button is red. I actually think all of my buttons are looking a little bit cluttered here. I'm going to give them a little bit of space inside of the button. So I'm going to select all of the buttons, and I'm going to give them some padding of, I don't know, 2 pixels. And this should apply to all of them. Ooh, 2 pixels is worse. Maybe 5 pixels. And now all of them have a little bit of space, which is nice. I'm also going to try to give these 2 nice buttons a green background. So one of the things that's really important is IDs can only be used on a single element. I want to give both of these elements a special style. So we're going to use something very similar. It works exactly the same as an ID, but instead it's called a class. So I'm going to give these a class of good. And what this will do is it will allow me to say, okay, instead of selecting the thing with an ID of mean, or all of the buttons, select just the good ones. So I'll go into the CSS styling, and I'll do a dot for class. So hashtag means ID, dot means class. So select all of the things with a class of good, and make their background green. And now you'll see, maybe a light green would be better. Now you'll see that, oh, and a light red would be better than the red. Let's see if I can do a light red. Ooh, there is no light red. I'll just put back red. Okay, so you can see that now we've got specific styling that goes with certain buttons with a class. This one was a single button, so we used an ID. We could have used a class for that too. And then we also were able to group things into a new type of selection, or a new type of element called a div. In the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to make it so that when we click these buttons, something interesting happens.